So having that time to go up to tables and have a bit of a conversation, tell my story, tell where the produce is from, people really enjoy that. They like to know where everything is coming from. And I guess it's very rewarding to then see customers coming back.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Finding your way and your voice in a new culture and country can have its challenges, but also its rewards. The colour and energy within our culinary landscape is the result of migration. But what does it take to make it down under? Lorena Corso is the head chef of Enzo. Lorena, how are you?
Hi, Huck. I'm very good. How are you?
Good. You've scored yourself a new gig, and you're the only one in the kitchen as well, you're the boss, the chef, everything. Tell us about the new role.
Yeah, so basically back the last lockdown, obviously I didn't have many hours at work like everybody. And me and Enzo, the owner of Signor Enzo in Brunswick, thought that we could kind of do a little collaboration during the weekends. So you will be selling, takeaway drinks, and I'll be doing a barbecue outside. So it was COVID friendly. I came up with a small menu and did a barbecue. So I was selling like chicken and sausage and a veggie option in a bread roll, kind of like how you have it, bread roll with sausage in Sicily, kind of similar to that. And it went really well. That we basically did it every weekend during the last lockdown. So I think I did about 8 or 9 weekends. That was a very good way for me to kind of see if I can actually do my own thing, because I've always worked for someone else, and I've only just started doing a couple of pop-ups here and there, but kind of seeing more like on a weekend basis, I think he kind of maybe understood, okay, maybe I can do this. But anyway, after the lockdown, I went back to Napier, and then Enzo was, asking me, why don't you just come in here, come and join us. You can just have the kitchen, you buy your own food, then you take your money from the food sales. And because the thing was, he had a chef in there, but he was due to finish. And he said, I'm not going to go, I'm trying to find someone else. Like there's barely staff around, it's too stressful. He was trying to run the kitchen and the bar, and it was a bit too much for him. So then he said, it just makes sense that you come here because people know you. I love your food. It pairs really well with my drinks. So have a think about it and, let me know. So then I thought about it for about 6 months. And I just wanted to be sure. So then, and then in March, I left Napier Quarter and I joined him. And basically I sort of brought some of my equipment into the kitchen. I mean, most things were already there, and I don't really need much. I just have an hibachi grill, a fryer, and 2 induction tops, and that's I've designed a menu that it's kind of easy to handle if you're by yourself in the kitchen, but also that is easy to pair with the drinks and the wine that Signor Enzo has in the shop. And that's it. And I mean, we've done okay so far. When I joined back in March, it was still kind of summer. It was really busy because we have about 25 seats inside and another 25 outside. So it was kind of nice and, still sunny days and warm nights. So it was pretty busy. And then it kind of, when winter started, it was a little bit quieter, but now it seems that people kind of go out again and they came around the idea of winter again. So they kind of, so we've had some good weeks recently, which is great. And so here I am. It's just me in the kitchen. I don't need more people because it is a small place, and sometimes it's actually easier to be less people and kind of like communicate with the public if you're gonna be late for something, or people understand it. It's a nice community space. And yeah, it's just me and someone else front of house and Vincenzo.
Your career in Australia has been about all sorts of cuisines, but not Italian, which is your heritage. Well, tell us about the menu that you're doing here.
So the menu is, I guess it's a wine bar, kind of aperitivo bar menu. You have your staples, salami, prosciutto, some nice bread, some anchovies, and a couple of cheeses. And I only use products from Victoria. So I kind of like, I guess I imagine to be back home having an aperitivo or a few glasses of wine in a wine bar and thinking what I would like to eat when I drink wine. And those are like, the first things you want to order. It's always something salty and a little bit of bread and some cheeses. But then obviously with my experience, I noticed that some people want to have like a proper meal. So then I thought I'd do some small dishes. Everything is designed to be shared. So I marinate my own sardines or mackerel or whatever fish it's at the market on a day. I do some pickled mussels, and I do this typical Sicilian street food called panelle, which is a chickpea fritters. So just like, something fried with a side of goat cheese curd. And then I do the famous Sicilian sausage that I was doing during the barbecues during the lockdown. I couldn't take that off the menu because so many people were asking for it. So then I decided to keep that on, and I just serve it with some bitter greens, just like quickly blanched and then charcoaled. And yeah, some nice salsa verde on top. And then I just kind of change the mains almost daily, or every 2 days. I always have a pasta dish. So I make my own pasta, either spaghetti or fettuccine or penne or tagliatelle, whatever I kind of feel like in the morning, I guess. And then the food is kind of, I guess it is Italian, but I don't like to label food too much because then people have certain expectations from you. I guess you do see a Mediterranean kind of theme throughout the menu. Some dishes are Sicilian or Sicilian inspired, or simply inspired from my time in Sicily and even my time across restaurants. I like to kind of take inspirations from every restaurant that I've been and then include that in my menu. So yeah, that's how it is for now.
I want to explore the restaurants that you have worked at in Australia, but take us back to Sicily and when you were young. What sort of role did food play in your family?
So food, like many Sicilian homes, has a primary role. From the moment you wake up, you receive a call from your auntie, and we don't really ask, how are you? We just ask, what do you want for dinner? That's kind of like, how are you? But in Sicilian terms. It's the first thought that you have when you wake up in the morning. Oh, what am I going to have for lunch? Or what am I going to have for dinner? Or, oh, maybe I can do this. So it's, I guess, because there's markets everywhere and there's food vendors everywhere. So even when you walk around, you can like smell food all the time. And it's always in your mind. And it's one of those things that bring people together. Like, I didn't grow up rich or neither poor, but like we were, just about okay as a family. And I guess food was always on the table. So that was something that I was looking forward every day, every week. We'll always have a Sunday lunch, with my auntie, my grandmother, grandfather, and everyone else. So it'll always be between 10 to 15 people at the table on Sundays. Which, it was a nice day. No one was working on that day. And, you can eat nice food and have a nice afternoon with your family. And then off you go for the rest of the week. I wasn't particularly in love with food when I was younger. I actually had a very simple palate. I would just have plain pasta or just bread and olive oil and fruits. I wasn't very adventurous, actually. I don't know why. I'm not proud of that moment for sure, because, my mother had to kind of cook not just for everyone but for me, like on a separate stove. So and then my sister was vegetarian, so that was another kind of layer on top. But so yeah, I don't know why I didn't like food very much. Like I liked, but the one thing I liked was a steak, like a minute steak, like thinly sliced, cooked on charcoal. That was something that I really liked, and I liked my auntie's cooking very much. So if she was to cook something on charcoal, either a little steak or some chicken or fish or veggies, I would love that. So anything that had to do with charcoal cooking, I was happy with. And I guess that's why I'm so obsessed with it now, because I guess that was, that was the first adventurous food for me. Anything cooked on charcoal, I'll eat it. I was happy with. And then I guess I didn't really get into food until my early 20s, when I moved to the UK at the age of 21. And obviously I was living with other people. I had to cook my own food, and I started to explore, in my own ways, and go to restaurants in the UK which are different from restaurants in Sicily. There's a lot of the Indian cuisine is very popular and very good as well, and I really, really enjoyed eating Indian or Nepalese or Bangladeshi. And after years of working as a bartender and waitress, I decided that I wanted to give it a go and work in the kitchen. So yeah, I asked around, and my friend gave me this job at an Indian restaurant in Brighton in the UK. I thought if I want to learn something, I might as well do something that is completely different to what I'm used to. And so yeah, I cooked Indian food for the first year. I enjoyed it so much, like discovering all the spices and the flavors, and I guess because there's a lot of like deep fried food in Indian cuisine, all the snacks, I think I really like that because I love deep fried food. So I really liked that, and then I learned how to make ice cream as well from scratch. We were using Italian products to make ice cream. So it was basically an Italian ice cream, but all the different flavors, kind of paired to Indian cuisine, like rose petals and dates and pistachio and saffron. And that was great. And I guess I thought to myself, if I enjoy this for a year, then I'm going to keep going and see if I can make this into an actual career. And I enjoyed it a lot. And I guess I started when I was 23. So I thought I was a little bit too late to the game, like compared to my colleagues that were kind of younger. So I just kind of tried to move from one place to another to learn as much as I could in a short time. So I started at a restaurant, then I moved on to working at festivals, and then I worked in cafes, and then I moved to pubs, and then again restaurants. I sort of like moved around a little bit just to kind of understand for myself what I want, like what I like the most, what I, can see myself maybe later on have my own thing or start my own thing. And I guess, now I'm in a wine bar, which is, like a small restaurant, but not as full on as a restaurant. And it's got some cafe vibes if you open for lunch, but it's not, cafe food. So you can be a little bit adventurous, but it's not too stressful, and it's casual dining, which I guess is my favorite way of eating food.
What led to the move to Australia?
So one of my head chefs, mentor, he's British, but he lived in Australia for about 5 years, and when I worked with him, he just couldn't stop talking about Australia. Like, he was so gutted that he had to leave because of the visa ran out. And he was telling me, you should go. I think you really like it down there. So then I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to go to Australia, but it's so far away. And I don't really want to go by myself. because I made my first move by myself. So it's kind of, you know, if you need to do it all over again and you need to start over by yourself again, it's kind of daunting. And so then I pitched the idea to my girlfriend and I said, would you like to go to Australia? It doesn't have to be now, but basically when I turn 30, that's kind of the last year where we can actually go, if I wanted to get the working holiday visa. So then we thought about it. And in the meantime, we moved from Brighton to London. We spent a few years there because she got a really good job up in London. So it was a good opportunity for me to finally make that move to London that I've been avoiding for years. And I threw myself into the culinary industry in London, which is, I'm sure you've heard, is very challenging. And I mean, I did enjoy it. I was working way too much, that's for sure. But I guess because I had that goal of I'll move to Australia soon, I didn't mind doing the 60 to 70 hours a week. So I basically tried to learn more and improve my skills and made connections. There's a lot of people from Australia that live in London, especially in the area where I was living, in East London. And so then I was kind of like half ready to move, and it just made sense. I don't know, after I didn't see myself being in London for too long, and I guess if I wanted to progress in my career and explore more, the move to Australia just made sense, and my girlfriend was very excited about it. And then we started looking for jobs. She even got offered jobs while she was still in London. So I don't know, it was kind of, we had to come here. And then, so we came to Melbourne. I thought we'd start with Melbourne. That is kind of, well, they call it like the most European city in Australia. And I mean, we just fell in love with it, you know. It's the people, the culture. It's easy to get to other cities in Australia from Melbourne. It is not as expensive as London. So that was a big key factor for me as well. I didn't want to kind of move to Australia and then pay the same rent that I was paying in London. That just didn't sit well with me. So yeah, we made friends very quickly, and then after the first year, we had to make a decision if we wanted to stay in Australia or move back. So then we applied for visas, and after a few years of, you know, sacrifice, studying and spending a lot of money, we finally got a PR, which is great. I consider myself lucky to be able to get the PR within 4 years of being in Australia. I know that it's so hard for most people to achieve that. So then I used the opportunity and I threw myself into it, got the PR, and here we are now. Now we, you know, not too far away from actually be able to apply for citizenship. And yeah, I mean, we love it here. Like, we have friends, really good friends, and yes, we are really far away from home, but I think you know, when you start traveling and you find a place that you really, really like, I think it would be silly to then go back. So we decided to stay here and see how we go, and then try to go to Europe when we can to visit our families, and that's it. Here we are.
What did you think of the food scene in Melbourne when you arrived?
I really enjoy it. I mean, I like the fact that there is more Southeast Asian here than it was in London. So I kind of throw myself into eating more Chinese, Vietnamese, Laotian. Like, there's Thai food is so much better. Like, the ingredients used. And just, I don't know, I remember in London going to Chinese restaurants and never really enjoyed it as much as I know I could. But yeah, when I came to Melbourne, I mean, most of the times when I go out for a meal, it's Southeast Asian food. I really enjoy it. So that's something it's good to be able to eat such diverse cuisine. But also just the mix of cultures, you know, the Italian influence, the Greek influence, and there's a lot of really good Turkish restaurants too. So I feel like I've got the best of both worlds. Like what you find in the UK, there's a lot of Indian cuisine, but then I'm not too far from Italy in the UK, so it's easy to go home and eat Italian food. But here I can kind of just experience that by going to different restaurants, because there is great Southeast Asian cuisine, Indian, Italian, Spanish. There's anything you want, it's on your doorstep. So I really like that, how easy it is to have that in Melbourne. Yeah.
You worked at some pretty incredible restaurants like Anchovy, Estelle and Napier Quarter. What's been the real influences on you during your time in Australia?
Well, I guess I've had some really good experiences in all of these places you mentioned. I've worked with some incredible people, hardworking people. They kind of taught me a lot how it is to be a chef in Australia, the differences that I found compared to London or the UK in general. The fact that Australia is really trying to reduce the hours for chefs and hospitality workers, and the wages are way better than in the UK. So I like that people kind of stand up for themselves and say, I'm not going to do 70 hours a week. It's insane. I don't want to burn out by the age of 35 for working hospitality. So I think the approach that people have here, it's a lot healthier than, I guess, other parts of the world. And it kind of makes you fall in love with, being in hospitality again. And I've had good experiences in all places. I was first at Estelle, really nice team. A lot of, I kind of like got to know more Australian ingredients and all the different Australian produce from the sea, like, all the fish names and so much, like the seafood, it's got such a big role here, which I love. And then when I moved to Anchovy, I obviously had the chance to cook Southeast Asian, which is another love of mine, and explore that side of the world with tea. It was very inspiring, and also kind of because it's Anchovy, it's a small venue, you get to really see other sides of it, like how to budget your weekly expenses when you need to do your ordering, and how to kind of order for a 4-day week venue, use everything fresh, and then trying to plan a menu that you want to run out of everything by Saturday night, because then you're going to be closed for 3 days. And that's what I do now. We only open from Wednesday to Saturday, so I'm trying to kind of always have the freshest ingredients, but then you don't want to order too much that you're going to have leftovers, and leftovers are basically wastage, so you don't want that. And then during COVID, when I left Anchovies, because obviously the hours were reduced, and it was completely understandable that they had to let me go. So I applied to work at Napier Quarter, which was one of my favorite, it still is, wine bar in Melbourne. I used to live not far from that. And, I got to kind of work with primarily Victorian ingredients, see what it's like to have a small wine bar in a, neighborhood. And it's all that community, artisanal, fresh ingredients that I really wanted to kind of put my hands on and really understand if the wine bar could be my place. And I guess I learned so much. You can do so much from a small kitchen, and that's for sure. Napier Quarter is the proof of that. And then I guess I took that, before I left Napier Quarter, I took that kind of experience and put it into my kitchen now. So like time management, produce management, try not to order too much, not trying to still keep I guess, a smallish menu, but still be able to kind of please the customers when they come in, because not everybody likes salami and prosciutto. People want to come in and have a nice plate of pasta and a glass of wine. So yeah, I guess every place it taught me something, and that's what I am now. So I'm ever so grateful for, you know, all the mentors and head chefs that I worked before. And yeah, I'm hoping to grow, I guess, and just keep going.
You're championing Victorian producers on the menu. Do you have any stories of the connections that you've fostered with producers?
Oh yeah, so I've met lots of people through, obviously, hospitality is a world within. So you meet producers, because when you start ordering produce from Victoria, then you end up kind of buying directly from the farm. So obviously, through working in previous places, I kind of kept some contacts, but also like through friends, they've introduced me to other farmers. It's always like a word of mouth. And then I met Jo Corrigan from Mushroom Anonymous through friends, and I did a couple of events with her using her produce. And then another friend of mine used to work at Jo's Market Garden in Coburg. It's kind of like the it's like Ceres, but in Coburg. And I remember there was a guy there named Ben, that he was kind of the farmer of the market. And then we kept in touch, and now he's got his own farm. He operates out of Madeline's Eggs, which is an organic farm already. So he started planting produce there last year, and now he's selling produce. It's a very small list of produce that he's got, but every single thing is so good. Like, it's so tasty. It's organic, and it's, you know, very close. It's only up in Romsey, or even before Romsey. I think it's 45 minutes from here. And I guess I like the fact that I can use the produce that is the freshest. There's not many in between. I can directly buy from them. I can support them, because they do have also small businesses. And yes, you do pay a little bit more, but the produce is so good. Like, sometimes, let's say you buy carrots, those carrots will be perfect for like a month in your fridge, which is, you know, when you go to supermarkets and you buy carrots, after a week they go off. Like, it's just not. So that's really important for me. And I'll do the same for fish. I buy produce from Two Hands. So Two Hands is basically a couple of guys that they work directly with fish farmers, but also when fishermen go out fishing and they target a specific species, let's say I don't know, whiting, there's a lot of bycatch in there. So there's a lot of fish that they don't necessarily want to use. So they work with those farmers, and they say, okay, we have some extra fish, like we have Tommy Ruff, we have some calamari, and we have king jug whiting, or we got some flounders. Do you want them? So they use the bycatch, and they try to sell that to restaurants instead of kind of going to waste, or, you know, or end up landfill. Yeah, because sometimes it's hard to sell. If you don't have enough of something, restaurants might not necessarily order it. So I guess for them, working with smaller restaurants is easier. So they usually send me a text on Sundays. They say, okay, the fishing conditions are good. We're going to go out fishing. Submit your wish list here, and then we'll get in touch. So I'll say, okay, I would like to get some calamari and maybe flounder. Let me know if you get any of those. And then on Tuesday, you receive another message of obviously how the fishing went. So we got some good calamaris, but they're like all different sizes. Is that okay with you? Yeah, no problem. So I kind of, you know, designed my menu around that too. And I guess it's good for me to be closed from Sunday to Tuesday, because I have that time frame to see what fish they catch and if I can use it, and how I'm gonna do it on the menu. So then I change the mains on the menu almost weekly because of that.
What's it like moving to a new country and building a career in it?
I mean, it does have its challenges. I guess when I moved to the UK, my English wasn't great, but I could kind of communicate. So that was probably the first hurdle that I had. But I've always been pretty outgoing and friendly. And I guess if people see that, it doesn't really matter if your English is not perfect, like you will make friends. And once you establish, for me anyway, once I've established friendships, then it's become a lot easier to deal with anything else. And I guess it was pretty easy to make friends in Melbourne, like it was in the UK, because I didn't go to London straight away, I went to Brighton. So people are a little bit more chilled out and the pace of life is not as hectic as London. Once you make friends, then everything else it's easier. But also be able to see these friends. For me, it's very important to see my friends almost on a weekly basis because of my work. I work so much, I don't really see anyone for like 4 or 5 days a week. It's, during my days off, I do want to spend time with friends and my partner. It's very important for me. So I guess when I moved to Melbourne, I realized I had more time for my social life than I had before. And that was definitely a bonus. And I guess that's why I like it here so much, because work-life balance is, it's great. Friendship is definitely important.
You found yourself in a role where you can really express yourself on the plate, but what do you love about what you do?
What I love, I guess, is having that freedom to choose what you want to cook on the day, but also have the time to, I often run the food to the tables, and I like to have a little bit of a conversation with our guests, because what's important is also make them happy. And if there's something that they don't necessarily enjoy, then I want to hear it, because I want to make sure they come back next week and that I'll have something on the menu for them. So having that time to go up to tables and have a bit of a conversation, tell my story, tell where the produce is from. People really enjoy that. They like to know where everything is coming from. And I guess it's very rewarding to then see customers coming back almost weekly to try your food. And I guess that's another encouragement for me to keep changing the menu, so then they don't, when they come back, they're not necessarily going to have the same food.
Well, congrats on what you're doing there, and it's an absolute honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds today to hear your story. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you so much, Huck. Thank you for the opportunity. You have a nice day.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.